Hi, Jason.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning. Hi, everyone. I'm going to give it a couple more minutes before we get started. Thank you for showing up early. I love it when people show up early. So let's give it a couple more minutes, and I'll kick things off. All right, I'm going to get started. Um, I'm sure some people will join a bit later, but I think this is a good time to start as any. So thank you everyone so much for showing up. My name is Berkey Bukujak. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Superbio. We are, um, in a sentence, Superbio is an end-to-end AI platform and marketplace, but only for working for biotechnology and life sciences industry, right? So our goal is to democratize AI for biotechnology specifically. Before I get started, I'll kindly ask you to mute yourself if you haven't done so, to avoid any interruptions and allow everyone to hear as clearly as possible. So we have a very, you'll let me know if you can't see my screen, please. We have a very exciting packed agenda today. I'll spend the first 5 to 10 minutes explaining who we are, what's our vision, why do we exist, and how are we solving the problems that we've identified in the life sciences industry. And then I'll spend 10 to 15 minutes showing you what we already built, right? How to navigate the Superbio App Store, the large language models that we're working on that are not quite yet released, but will be released soon for your review. How to run inference or train your own models using the applications on our platform. How to create an organization, meaning that how you can onboard as an organization to our platform, where you can share a workspace between data teams and lab teams, and how to automatically create an app, the technology that we've created. And that will be followed by a Q&A session with Jason Knights of OctoML, the co-founder and VP of machine learning at OctoML, where we're going to talk about the impact of generative AI in healthcare. And if we have time, I would love to spend 5 to 10 minutes with you, allow you to ask questions about the product, to Jason about generative AI in healthcare, as well. And if you don't have time, I'll obviously follow up with a form for you to give us feedback or reach out with any inquiries. So let's start. So I think our biggest vision is to eliminate trial and error in life sciences research, right? And then we're doing this not because we're the first ones that ever thought of this. Just as a way of example, when you look at the pharmaceutical industry and R&D in drug discovery, we've already seen artificial intelligence really boosting the efficiency of drug discovery in terms of time and cost spent on drug discovery R&D, right? What traditionally takes about 5 years and $500 million.
Alexa, pause.
In terms of R&D, it actually took about 1.5 years and $2 million for companies that have efficiently used artificial intelligence in their R&D process, such as Helix, based in the UK. So we know already that there are over 50 drugs in the clinical pipeline and in the clinical trials that have been developed or identified by artificial intelligence. So we know that AI actually boosts technical probability of success in research, but our research showed our research revealed that biotech is not really set up to leverage these AI solutions efficiently. And we've boiled it down to three main reasons, right? One is biological data is unique. You can test the same
Yeah, let's
hypothesis.
go. I think we should go. If you're there like
multiple.
5 minutes early, it doesn't matter.
Could you please mute yourself? Whoever, I'm not sure who is not muted, but I'll check.
Sorry.
Mute. You're okay. So we boil it down to three main reasons. One of them is biological data is unique. You can test the same hypothesis with multiple experimental setups, meaning that you end up with more than multiple data sets testing the same hypothesis, right? So finding and building the right optimal model for that use case takes a considerable amount of time, right? So identifying, scanning the literature, finding the GitHub repositories, reproducing them for your own use case actually takes a considerable amount of time, whether you for small pharma companies as well as big pharma companies. The next problem is deployment, right? There's a lack of AI and infrastructure expertise. Biological data is in terabytes and petabytes is quite large. AI models are quite heavy, so deploying them efficiently is very, very important. Otherwise, you can run your labs, your company's budget down to the ground. And finally, the last piece is collaboration. More often than not, the people who are running these models are not the ones that can actually interpret the results, right? Data teams, data science teams run the results. Biology teams are the ones that are supposed to interpret those results, but more often than not, the tools of collaboration are not really existing in this domain, which allows for efficient knowledge exchange. So in short, what we're doing is we want to foster a spirit of collaboration with a unique platform that we're building, right? So Superbio, I would say, our main difference from other companies that are out there is mainly we don't create technology from scratch. Our technology is in the marketplace we're building, right? So what we do is we crowdsource AI-based tools, machine learning models, and data sets, state of the art, from research groups, whether that's their academic research groups or technology companies, and we place them, deploy them in a user-friendly, easy-to-use interface on an optimized cloud where you can collaborate with your teammates, right? And then we sell this platform to biopharma companies so that they can use our tools and feature to reach better and faster results. And in turn, whatever revenue we receive, we actually give it back to the community, right? Who gains visibility, who gains credits, who gains reward. So Superbio is not a repository, it's more of a marketplace. We want to incentivize and motivate the researchers to actually more actively work and make their codes more reproducible, and then earn from their work in new ways that they haven't previously done so, right? And another differentiator is that all the models are validated by us, and they come from peer-reviewed, reputable sources. This doesn't mean they have to come from Harvard University, but it means that they have to come from a peer-reviewed article, come from a peer-reviewed GitHub repository. And this platform has been built with science and scientists in mind, not necessarily developers in mind per se. And this is already out. We have over 600 state-of-the-art AI solutions improved by us in the platform. I'll do a demo in a bit. Improved in hardware acceleration, improved in memory optimization, improved in standardization. So it allows for customization. And then because they're deployed, you can run inference, you can run training, fine-tuning, no-code applications or APIs, right? And where we're going is you can actually access community models as well as host your own models. I'll talk a bit more about that in a bit. And the last piece is you can actually share these applications, share the results with your team and with anyone else you would like. So this takes me to the demo itself. So here we have the Superbio App Store. You can navigate there yourself as well. app.superbio.ai will take you there. You don't even need to sign up to be able to browse and see what kind of applications we have, right? So I could start off how you sort and find apps in the platform. First thing you can do is, this is all listed by recently added models. You can do so by listing it by most runs, how many times a model has been run, which you can see with the orange triangle on the right, or how many times it's been liked or star, right? You can star an app and that would show up. That would be your favoriting and that would show up in my library. I'll show that in a bit as well. Another thing you can do is you can search with tags. One thing that we've done, a challenge, and I guess an opportunity here is that this domain is very various. You have to work with very diverse set of data types, which means that we have biomedical image analysis models, as well as time forecasting models, as well as drug discovery and design models that you can find. So we've basically tagged every model, every solution on the platform very diligently for you to be able to find these models very effectively. Oops. Oh, I got it. There we go. And the last thing you can do is you can actually do a keyword search, right? Perhaps you want to look for chemical property prediction. You can do so. Or perhaps you would like to look for spatial transcriptomics. You can do so as well. I think an important thing to note here, a portion of the applications that we have on the platform are actually deployed. You can actually go to these applications, see what are they about, see the example use cases, give us feedback on this app, and I'll do a demo in a little bit as well, right? The other thing that you can do is actually request this app. So for example, this app has not been deployed completely yet. And then you can request this app from the Superbio.ai team, which send us the request. And then we, in the 2 to 3 weeks of time, when there's enough interest, we actually deploy that model for your use case. So you can request this app on our platform to be deployed for your own use case as well. And if you can't find what you need, you can simply let us know by filling out a form, by clicking that can't find what you need model. So this takes me to actually showcasing some of the models that we have on the platform. So I'll start with some of the large language models that we're working on. This is an admin account, so you're going to be able to see this. The one that I like to demo is ChatBio, as we call it. It's an encyclopedic large language model for biology. We tested it with various prompts and various questions. It does perform quite well. We would like to, we're running our own experiments to compare it with sort of the existing models, large language models that are out there. But with this, what we wanted to achieve is give a very specific role to the large language model and ask it very specific questions about sort of biological or the domain of that role. So this significantly improves the results, the answers that the model gives. So in the current state, what happens is this is sort of contained. We do not use OpenAI in the backend. We have our own large language models contained. So every question, every prompt that you give contains within your account, although this is for research purposes only. So I would encourage you to, once this is released and once you're testing it out, I'd encourage you to keep it to not sharing any sensitive information overall. So you can see that it gives a quite impressive and specific answers to your questions. So this is an example large language model that we're working on that's going to release soon. Similarly, DocChat, this is a private chat with documents. Again, it doesn't send any information to OpenAI or any other platform. It just, everything is contained within your server. You will be noticed when these applications are out. The other application that I like to demo is synthetic EEG generation. Right, there is tons of applications in the platform, very various. So I'll just select one in random, and then I'd like to give you an example. Does the model provide citation for reference? It absolutely does. Every model, every application. Again, I encourage you to take a look at it yourself. Every application provides a citation for themselves, and in these descriptions that you can see here are actually provided by the researchers themselves. So once you're in the platform, what you can do is you can look at the description, you can look at the limitations, you can look at the use cases, the tasks, and a neat thing that we provide is actually giving you example results. So before you even run the application, you can actually see what the results look like in this nice model. And you can see the source where the model comes from with GitHub repository, Google Colab Notebook, and then refer to that source script back into the repository. The other point is we provide you we give you as much information as possible what the data should look like. We provide you staging data, right? You don't have to immediately upload your own data if you don't like to. And then we provide you what this data should look like, right? So it should look like exactly like this. So this is a preview of the data, right? So let's select this. Similarly, let's select this one. So on the right, so on the left, all the applications look like each other. They actually, on the left, you do the data input, the file input. On the right, you provide parameter configuration. With this application, you can fine-tune a pre-trained model that's been provided by the researchers. You can train a new model, or you can synthesize using EEG data using a pre-trained model, right? So let's say you want to fine-tune a pre-trained model. You can change some parameters here. And the neat thing is you can run on the CPUs or the GPUs that we provide, right? So let's run this on the CPU. Again, quickly, you can actually share these applications with anyone you'd like in your network by copying it or sharing it in any of these socials that you would like. Once the model actually completes, I'd just like to show you that you receive an email just like this in your account, and then you can click here to see results and go to results. So let me go over the results really quickly as well. So of course, this takes a bit of time, but I'll just like to show you a few different results from a few different applications. For example, this is a convolutional neural network for running image classification tasks. I've run basically chest X-ray, pneumonia, or healthy prediction model. And then you can see training accuracy, validation accuracy, inference sample, the predictions, and then how the images look basically passing through different layers of the convolutional neural network. Similarly, you can have results that look like more molecules or proteins themselves, right? This is a model that generates low energy conformance from the smiles, from the molecules that you input. Or you can have AlphaFold, right? AlphaFold is an example that we probably all know at this point. It's the protein myoglobin. You can provide amino acid sequence, and then we run it in the background and provide you what the app looks like, what the model looks like. So finally, let's look at what the app results look like, the one that I've used. Once it completes, it looks a bit like this, right? You can change and then navigate the content by click on the content here on the left. Most of the time, this is basically a preview, just a flavor of what the results look like. You should download to reach and have all the results that the application creates. So what we aim to do is actually, we can actually deploy these elsewhere, and maybe that's a AWS S3, maybe that's a Google Drive. We can allow you to connect those databases to here as well. So we fine-tune the model. Another neat thing that you can do is actually save this model, test model webinar in my models. And once you do that, using this, you can actually train again, synthesize. You can see that you can read the training results. You can synthesize using pre-trained model, and then fine-tune the pre-trained model or delete this. Right. So this is the model itself that the application have created. So this is it for the App Store itself. I'll quickly talk about this part. So this is the App Store. It's common in what we call the Superbio playground. But where we're going actually is basically creating an enterprise solution where you can find the community models, as well as host your own AI models privately. And why I would do that is because, one, you can benchmark your own model against the public domain, which is a very useful feature. And secondly, you can actually connect teams internally, as well as you can connect it to ecosystem, right? Perhaps you have your industry partners, academic partners, big pharma partners. You can do so by using the platform capabilities, right? And I'll show that. Oops, I'll show that very quickly how to do that as well. Once in your account, you can go to my account and you can actually start an organization, right? And maybe you'd like to call it, Biggie Bio, and your design is creating, right? And you can create this organization. Once you do that, you can actually invite others, right? You can actually invite other users, and then you can see once you, I should be able to see this here in a minute. There we go. So I received an invitation and I can accept this invitation. Once I do that, I'll be able to receive, so we're back at the results. What you can do is actually you can reshare these results with your organization. So that means that once the other person who accepted your invitation joins in, they can actually see all the results that you shared within your organization. And you can see the results that you share within your organization with this little neat icon on the left. And I just realized that I forgot to mention something, that this icon that you see near the apps, they actually represent whether you can train a model with that specific application or if that model is just for inferencing, right? So the last thing that I'd like to show, and this is only available in the admin account as well, because this is on the beta, but how we actually get to create applications, right? So this will soon be released back to the researchers themselves who can actually do it themselves. But we were actually creating our own technology to automate the process from taking your scripts where you pre-process the data, where you provide us, the training script. We actually want to take that and turn it into an interface automatically. So it's really easy on your end, right? So let's create an app called Deep DNA version 2. The author should be Superbio. What it does is predict DNA sequences. This could be app used in cancer research. And as you can see on the right, it updates and makes it look like whatever it's going to look like on the application itself, right? So this is Berkia et al. Focus tag is, it should be, let's see, genomics, and then we can move forward. So here you can add your code, my GitHub repo.com. You can add a script, but I'll add the deep DNA scripts, and I'll add a requirement file. I'll show you what that looks like as well, right? So all the requirements of the application. Model to run. So once I upload that, I'll ask description of your code to your best buddy. Here we go. So what we are doing in the background is basically taking your scripts or taking the list of scripts that you provide us, because if it's too big, we will ask you to sort of separate it into different scripts, and then basically figure out what parameters, what data file inputs that's in there. And then we're parsing that. From that, we're creating a YAML file, which is a file that allows us to create interfaces, and then we're sort of automating it. I think the main thing is it takes about a few minutes to complete this process. The main thing to note is that we are not trying to do this once and for all. What we're trying to do is we're actually trying to provide you helpful templates, right? You can use the existing template, you can create something from scratch, or you can actually just edit the template that we provided for you. So this will be ready in about a few seconds, hopefully, that I'll be able to show you. So this is the last part of the product demo that I'm doing. Hopefully from here, we'll go on to having a chat with Jason. Again, this is in beta, so I'd like to ask you to let me know once if you have anyone in mind, I'd like to test this out for us, and I'll talk a bit more about that later. So here it is. We have basically a nice YAML file that has been automatically created. It's also generally successful. If you don't like what this looks like, you can actually just go back and click here and then use our sample method. Here, I can see that there's like more parameters that I've actually liked, so I'm going to delete these ones. And once I did that, here it is. So here we have the FASTA sequences file. The data structure is automatically generated. And all we're asking for you, as we showed before, is for you to give us a demo file so that we can create a staging environment. So I'll upload that here. Moving on next, it has done the same with input parameters, right? So again, we'll ask you to edit this. If you don't like it, we provide you sort of a useful sample so you can test, you can change this up as well. And then lastly, we have configuring your results page. This is a bit more trickier, I'd say. So you might have to do a bit more work. We provide you carousels, tables, figures. All you need to do is tell us the data file and what the data should look like, and we sort of create a results page for you. So this is the first iteration. Obviously, once you complete this, this creates a draft on our version, and then we can use this version to rapidly create and release an app on the platform. And at the current stage, I'd say we're about, we can create an app in about 3 to 4 days. When this is released, we're hoping to get that down to basically a day, because we will have all the information, and we want to sort of take a step back and then give the agency to the researchers a bit more. And we just want to become the group that validates and makes sure that the community can actually derive value from the application and the models that the researchers are contributing. So I'll stop there with the product demo, and then move on to the Q&A. So before I get Jason to unmute himself and talk about us and do a little introduction, I'd like to do an introduction on him as well, for those that may not know him as well. So Jason is an experienced machine learning engineer and a bioinformatics scientist with a PhD in electrical engineering and bioinformatics and computational biology from Texas A&M University. And he's the co-author of numerous papers that's been published in top academic journals. Prior to his role at OctoML, Jason worked for, as a bioinformatics scientist in human longevity and as a head of, software product for the AI products group at Intel. Finally, Jason, co-founded and is the VP of machine learning at OctoML, which is a basically very successful startup democratizing AI for everyone. They are doing incredible work with generative AI, so I really encourage you to take a look at it. Democratizing AI is a mission dear and near to our heart. So welcome, Jason. It's great to have you.
Thanks for having me, Bert. Yeah, really excited to be here.
Yeah. So without further ado, let's kick things off. So I guess I'd like to start off by addressing what the last 9 months brought, right? So the last 9 months have basically completely changed how we as a world talk about AI, because generative AI and ChatGPT has been released. Where do you see the as a bird's eye view, sort of the opportunities and challenges generative AI sort of poses in healthcare and life sciences?
Yeah, so I think I have 2 different lenses to apply on the opportunity side of things. So in healthcare specifically, there's the administration side, and then there's the clinical side. Actually, I just met someone yesterday doing chatbots for clinical billing on the administration side. So trying to facilitate the interaction between payer and insurance companies. And I think there's a vital set of needs and opportunities there. And I'm not the right person to talk to that. And then, of course, on the clinical side, as you went through today, a lot of exciting areas there that maybe I'll apply my second lens, which is, if I look at what generative AI is doing more broadly, I think there's kind of three different parts. There's more, but three parts in particular that I'm excited about. It's the ability for generative models in healthcare to enable you to move faster with less data and less data science. So, it used to be in ML where, step one was always find a data set or collect your own data set, and then the data processing, building the model, training the model, evaluating the model. Whereas really nowadays you can skip often to that very last step and use, as you've been demonstrating on Superbio, like so much like embarrassment of riches of built models that, unlike in the past where these models were extremely specific for classifying a certain RNA-seq data set under certain conditions for a mouse strain XYZ. Like now you can use these models for a whole host of use cases with just a little bit of prompt tuning here, prompt engineering, or fine tuning. So that's maybe the first. The second is doing more, like new applications that have opened up with generative AI, because these models are just inherently more powerful in higher dimensional spaces. So you have anything from AlphaFold, DiffDoc, and RF diffusion to generating novel protein sequences. And this is just the beginning, right? So a lot of problems that weren't even within the realm of kind of what we could approach are now becoming feasible, if not commonplace. And then the last piece is multimodality. Again, with the increased power of generative AI, these models can not only do more within a space, but they can bridge spaces that previously were very difficult to bridge. And this is near and dear to my heart. I was looking at the end of my PhD at the colonic environment for predicting and kind of look at the progression of colon cancer and the interaction between gut microbiome and host colonocytes and the various milieu of tissues there. And then you look at the modality of data types of RNA-seq and bacterial composition and the microbiome. Like there's just an entirely so many modalities that you're all trying to bring together and really classic statistics, and even a lot of original deep learning was just not powerful enough to kind of grasp and kind of give you tools for these problems. Whereas now you see people bringing together language, audio, vision all together, and these are very complex, high-dimensional data sets. And so I'm really excited to see how that plays out in the biology space similarly. And then on the challenge side, oh yeah, go ahead, Bert.
I'll go for it. I think you're making a fascinating point. I recently read a paper that argued basically perhaps we should use machine learning not only for hypothesis testing but also generating hypotheses too, because often, especially in social sciences, and the example that the paper was giving was about what incentivizes a judge to jail someone versus not jail someone given their mugshot, right? And it was able to find a model was able to find things that actually subjects or humans was not able to elaborate or articulate. So I think these models do wonderful stuff, wonderful capabilities when the data becomes really complex and really high modality and becomes sort of various data types. So I completely agree with you. I think there's a very unique opportunity here, sort of combining a lot of different elements into one. But you were mentioning about challenges, Jason.
Yeah, because I could go on for the opportunities and excitement for a very long time. And so on the challenges side, I mean, there's numerous challenges here as well. One is navigating the space, right? Because these are complex models, complex spaces of the prediction action space that they're looking at. Just even understanding what's possible, what's feasible is still, well, it's a constantly moving target. It's moving all the time, and it depends on your use case, right? Like if you look at something like that large language model space overall, then depending on what your application is, your problem is either trivial now or it's still completely unsolved, or it's solvable under certain circumstances if you know the right steps. And so like navigating the space between completely insolvable and intransigent and trivial is very broad, and it's changing all the time, and it varies on very small factors sometimes. So that's one. Similarly, the pace of innovation is just so fast that it's changing all the time. So, day to day, what was on one side of the line can switch over to the other without you seeing that research paper in that one group in another field entirely that's not your modality, but is applicable to your modality, and you just didn't realize it. And then another challenge is the evaluation of these models. So, again, looking at the LLM space as an example, the ability to ascribe a single quantitative measure of performance to a model is, I find the analogy that I get the most leverage out of these days is like thinking of these models as humans, not in the sense of AGI, but in terms of how we evaluate other humans. So when you are looking at someone across the interviewing table and you're interviewing them for a job position, do you just look at their IQ score and decide whether to hire them based on that? Like, of course not, right? We know that humans are complicated, multifaceted individuals, and their ability to impact and do a certain job depends on their skill sets, which is multifaceted, and the problem domain, which is multifaceted. And so mapping those two together is an unsolved problem. But we've developed intuitions and skill sets and techniques to do that. For LLMs, that is still an evolving space, a very evolving space. And so while there's a lot of great work out there in terms of benchmarks for different types of characteristics and capabilities of these models, it's still closer to the IQ side of things than the job interview. And so I think we'll get into this more, I hope, in the discussion, but even just hallucination is such a small subset of this, but it's still a really hard problem of just when is the model correct versus making things up? And this is even hard in domains where you can go and fact check and do a Google search and an LLM, but with something like RF diffusion and a protein sequence, how do you check if it's hallucinating or not? What does that even mean? So lots of really gnarly problems here, really great challenges, but just the things that we have to live with these days.
Yeah, I've also recently read that there's a growing pushback, and this is just being devil's advocate here, that generative AI, in terms of generating molecules or proteins, it might do more harm than good in terms of not necessarily always creating something that is feasible physically, and then sending research groups sort of down rabbit holes that would never end up anywhere, sort of wasting more money than it was intended to do. It's interesting that you mentioned sort of the pace of technology, right? I think we all know that the pace of technology is much faster than the pace of regulation. And then when you think about the healthcare industry, the regulation and ethical standards are much stricter than in any other industries. And I know for a fact that pharma companies, healthcare companies, their leaders are telling their team and saying, just go do a couple of things with large language models and AI and come back and report to us. Given this regulatory environment, given the basically lives and patients at stake, how should healthcare leaders or leaders in this industry should navigate or take advantage of the large language models without really hurting anyone as a stakeholder?
Yeah, it's a really great question. I think the way that and I'm no expert in this domain, but I mean, from what I've seen in other domains, like safety critical system software, databases, all kinds of applications where there already exists a lot of great work, infrastructure, maybe not regulation per se, but the kind of mindset is the same, where these powerful technologies are coming to bear, and what is the best way to use them. given their challenges and restrictions that we talked about. And I think one kind of mantra or lens that I like is that the best way to do this is to augment your systems and your processes and your people and not replace them, right? Like we're not trying to jump all the way to a step of just, oh, these things are powerful, therefore we should replace what we have and replace the systems and techniques that we have with these models. And instead, you want to augment, like I think you described it really well with the hypothesis generation as a good example of this, where you're not trying to kind of replace the process of going straight to the final answer, but you're augmenting the human that is already doing this process with better set of hypotheses that they can evaluate using their intuition and data sets and skills and other techniques that we do have more confidence and trust in and understanding of. And so I think that's the probably one big piece I would recommend to people looking to deploy these in regulated environments is keep humans in the loop, right? It's we're not at a stage where these models and it depends on what kind. So I'm casting a really broad brush here, but can just go and immediately start replacing existing pieces in the pipeline because the evaluation problem I mentioned is so difficult. Like, what is the area under the curve or F1 score of an LLM? That's still we're still grappling with that question. And so instead, it's augment and attach and increase their productivity instead of replacing. Like a good example of this is I was at another event yesterday. Generative AI was there as always, kind of these days, and the head of GitHub Copilot was there. Copilot is this LLM powered tool in development environments for software engineers that now predicts what code you want to write, and not only gives you a few words of what your code that you want to write, but gives you entire paragraphs or even full functions. And they've seen massive adoption and in a very short timeline. And they were sharing that it's not a step change improvement. If they really closely look at the productivity gains of their software engineers over a large basis of users, they see anywhere from 8 to 20% productivity gains overall. Even though sometimes it feels magical, it is magical in the sense that this is much this can be measured in the billions or even trillions of dollars over the 5-year timeline in aggregate. But these incremental improvements are, I think, the where we should go first in terms of adding instead of replacing people and processes that exist today, especially in regulated environments.
I think that leads to my next question really nicely, because I wanted to ask you about, we've been in the last decade, we've been really accustomed to what's called a human in the loop, right? Every chatbot or every AI model basically have a thumbs up or a thumbs down button where you can give it a little feedback and it can adjust what it says and does according to your feedback. But when you take these models and when you use them in very specialized and very we're in industries and fields that require special skills, then I think you have what we can call an expert in the loop, right? And I think in the healthcare industry, human oversight is very irreplaceable. You need someone or multiple validated checks to make sure that whatever is generated by an AI model is actually accurate and is validated. So, and I think we can all agree that AI or large language models will become more and more integrated into the healthcare workflows. And I agree that they're not going to necessarily replace the healthcare workers or the experts. For this human or expert in the loop situation, how should experts or healthcare professionals should prepare or ensure that they have the basically necessary skills and knowledge to effectively collaborate or use these models to enhance the work that they're doing?
Yeah, I think it's a great question, because the typical answer is just, you got to go and learn about these models and kind of take courses online. But I think that a much more realistic answer is to figure out who your partner is on the other side, whether that's in kind of an AI provider, something like Superbio platform that and leverage the documentation and capabilities and support staff there, or if it's the people on the other side of your development environment in internal teams, and leverage the domain expertise you have, and realize that that is a critical half of the equation, and you should develop that relationship with your counterpart to ensure that the evaluation that needs to be done, and this is an ongoing process, as I keep mentioning, is being done according to what you understand. Because coming from the model builder side so often, and I realize I have this vague notion of what we're ultimately trying to achieve, or I think, or even worse, I think I know what we're trying to achieve, but it's the domain experts that can guide the process in terms of what actually matters, and the gotchas of, well, if you're looking at this metric, you're going to miss all of these things that you in the model aren't aware of. So it's that partnership that's really critical as the evaluation metrics and research evolve, and collaboratively you can. And then the second piece I would mention is just stay curious, right? Like, maybe you're not needing to take classes and learn generative AI yourself, but like, this is not going away, and that's a good thing, because it's going to make clinical outcomes and hopefully administration like better for all of us. But it's going to require all of us working together, and that curiosity is what allows you to kind of bridge the gap and work effectively with your counterpart, whether it's a platform provider or another human on the other side of the fence.
Well, we talked about regulation, we talked about experts. So let's switch gears and talk about, I guess, one of the biggest problems, which is data. So what do you think is the role is this coming from us? Let me see.
I think on a stance, yeah.
Got it. All right. So yeah, I want to talk about data. What do you think is the role of data from basically public resources as well as private repositories, and how can researchers out there can leverage them, best leverage them with modern generative AI? I mean, an example of this is on the Superbio platform, there's an app called Querying the Open Targets database, which means that there's an open targets database that's an open public biomedical database, and we allow users to basically ask specific questions to pull information from their knowledge graph, which such as what are the top 5 diseases associated with gene XYZ, and then it can sort of pull information and provide real quickly. So where do you see sort of the immediate applications of data in public or private repositories, and how to best leverage them with generative AI?
Yeah, it's a great question. So I think one nice thing about generative AI is that these models are typically trained on huge sets of data, these foundational models, and so oftentimes, a lot of the work is done for you. Of course, you have to check the model, and it depends on the domain and application, of course. But so that's one thing, is oftentimes it reduces your need to actually go out and kind of use this yourself. But these models are trained on a point in time of data, right? And they often don't have the latest up-to-date data, and they also don't have data that applies to your particular problem or domain, or you might have extra data that is proprietary to you that you want to mix into the fold somehow. And the common way that that's done is really a kind of twofold approach that are complementary rather than one or the other. Is there's fine tuning, which unfortunately does require you to kind of do some or a lot of the kind of machine learning side of things, though the tools are getting easier, as you demonstrated on Superbio. And happy to talk more about that as well. But then there's also things like retrieval augmented generation, or RAG as it's known these days. This is the ability to, through something called embedding, get the user intent of a generative AI model turn that into a vector space, and then go and retrieve chunks of data, whether that's chunks of documentation or chunks of literature research in up-to-date journals, or even particular protein sequences or RNA-seq data, and then pull that in for the context of the specific question that's being asked of the model. And I think this is a really rich vein of research, typically in the LLM domain, though I'd imagine it's being applied more and more in other domains as well, of being able to leverage kind of large sets of generic corpus data, but might be stale and not completely applicable to you, and then mix that with timely, subsetted proprietary data that for the specific query, and not only the kind of broader model that you have. So I think that it's a really exciting kind of continuum of options and techniques to leverage large data and timely proprietary data, and try to do this all in an easy way.
Where do you see the limitations of trying to create the vector databases and sort of embeddings and pulling that into a large language model? Because as far as I know, the largest GPT-4 model is 32K tokens, right? Which means that's the amount of information you can feed in. I'm just curious to hear, when we talk about the healthcare domain and biology domain, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the data can be often really, really big. Terabytes to petabytes of data. Do you see any limitations and sort of how much the technology needs to sort of improve for us to be able to reliably take these complete data sets, take these complete electronic medical records perhaps, and then feed it into a large language model, and then when asked a question, it doesn't really miss, it's capable of pulling and finding information from this really vast data sets?
Yeah, there's two parts to this. One is, I think RAG is, even though it's a cool technique and very useful and used in things like GitHub Copilot, for instance, it's actually still somewhat, I would say, archaic or primitive, in the sense that we take these embeddings of your question and the data set chunks and compute on them and do these similarity metrics in this vector space of the embedding dense vectors of numbers. But then we take that data and then put it back in the text form and feed it into the model in the LLMs side of things in a relatively naive way. And that's where you run up against the context window, the link that you mentioned. Rather than just taking it in its vector form, which is much more compressed and concise, and injecting that directly into the kind of working memory, if you will, of the language model. So I think we'll see advances here in terms of how to fit more and more efficiently into the model. The other half of this is that we already have a lot of tools for dealing with large data sets, right? SQL, protein sequence, queries based on MSAA and all these kinds of analysis. We have enormous set of data processing and querying tools and analytics. And so the other side of this is enabling LLMs and generative models to use these tools themselves effectively. And so instead of the model kind of operating on everything in its kind of memory space, if you will, in this context window, the model instead can emit queries to use these existing tools to bring data, summarize data, and then take the summarized results of that and then work with that, just as similar to how a human was. And I know this sounds magical if you haven't heard of this before, but now it's actually somewhat common practice, and that's the benefit of these really powerful generative models.
That makes a lot of sense. Because large language models have been proven to work really, really well with open APIs. If they can rent a car and book a hotel room for you, it can query SQL or MongoDB databases and summarize that information for you even further. I think you're raising a really good point. I guess I'd like to finish off the conversation with a question that could be more up your alley, given your role in OctoML. So I'd love to hear sort of what developments or future releases are you excited to see in generative AI in healthcare, when it comes to cloud computing and infrastructure?
Yeah, so I think the first is just how easy things are becoming if you know where to look. And so as you showed with Superbio, like how easy it is to kind of reach out and grab and start using these things. Whereas in the past, it would be, okay, let me start reproducing this research paper from scratch. Maybe there's a GitHub link and I got to go download the code and figure out how it works. But there's so much that's readily available and hosted for you. So you can get started in building applications and doing POCs almost immediately these days. So that's kind of the first accessibility piece that's really exciting. And then when you get a little more advanced, then the fine tuning and customization, like now you've done your POC and now you can really adapt this to your particular problem. So like this, when you know where to look, for instance, like platforms like Superbio or for more general purpose use case like OctoML, then you can get started really quick. And then the second part is how quick and cheap things are becoming, right? And quick in terms of latency of execution. So what used to take, hours and specialized hardware that you'd have to buy yourself and procure over the period of weeks or months, now you can immediately, see a result in a matter of seconds using rented GPU capacity in the cloud. And the cost for like image generation or token generations and LLMs and is just falling rapidly as we learn more techniques and on the algorithmic side, the compute side, and the hardware side to all make this efficient. And so now you can, LLM token generation is measured in the dollars per million tokens, right? Like that's the metric. And image generation, it's rapidly moving from the 1,000 images to the million images as well. And so the ability to kind of scale up as you need is really helpful. And this also unlocks new domains of problems of what you can do, because maybe you want to try to run an image generation per cell type or per sequence, or do an LLM query per RNA-seq FASTA sequence. Just like there's new things are possible when the cost and latency of execution comes down, and so that's what we're starting to see in terms of as we bring scale and costs to bear on these problem domains. It unlocks new capabilities, and invoking Jevons paradox, that as the price comes down, the utilization just skyrockets and the demand skyrockets. And so we're seeing customers that need hundreds of GPUs for single applications, and just truly massive scale, more on the consumer side, but I expect we'll see that scale on the bio and healthcare side as well shortly here.
Yeah, I keep hearing that we're running out of GPUs. Like fingers crossed that companies really start manufacturing GPUs at a much faster pace, because we're going to need it. Well, that's all my questions. Thank you so much for Jason. I'd just like to open it up for one or two questions to the floor, either for me or Jason, in the last minute or so we have. So feel free to type anything in the chat if you'd like to. Let's see. How was the weather like in Seattle, Jason? Are the rains back?
No, actually, we've got some sun here. It's been a really nice
Yeah.
summer and fall, or start of fall. And on your point on the GPUs, oh, we got a question here.
Do we? All right, let's see. Algorithm version will evolve. Hi, Tuche. The algorithm version. So I'm assuming sort of versioning the apps and Dockers themselves. We're sort of creating technology right now where we allow you to not only update an application but save or delete previous versions, so you can actually restore a previous version if you'd like to go back to the last version. So think of it as an app history that you can sort of roll back to if you wish to, but that's completely up to you.
Got it. Thank you. I think I was trying to ask more from like a broader perspective of like, how do you guys think, and with the new like,
Oh,
AI and like LLM, the algorithm aversion, sorry, not version. I was trying to actually spell out aversion will evolve in the workplace. And the reason I'm asking this is we're currently working on like, AI projects.
mhm.
And I think there's like still huge resistance. And it's also, I think, very sensitive in the sense that, like even minute divergences or like differences, or actually like against intuition examples
Mm.
will just like have people turn away completely from the tools.
I think, on my end, I don't know what Jason will think about it, but the industry that we're serving is, especially healthcare, biology, scientists tend to be more conservative, and they come into a platform, they come into a model, and they don't see something that they like, and then they can immediately be turned off or put off by that quick thing. So I think on the software development side, on the product side, we have to be very diligent at um, trying and testing out a few things. So they are, as you said, quantized, unquantized, GGML, or there are tons of different versions of large language models that are out there that are smaller or more accurate or less accurate. The only um, the only I think suggestion that I can make is be able to really profile your infrastructure or your system well enough to see what type of models that you can run on that system, and then find the best one or fine tune the best one for your use case. And then I suggest using existing tools that are out there, whether that's OctoML if it's general use case, or Superbio if it's a healthcare or biological use case, to sort of expedite that process. Miles, about the chat facility coming soon. I'll let you know when we have a chat facility to interact with the apps more directly without reading anything on the application. So that's coming soon. So I'd like to be mindful of everyone's times. I had a great time, Jason. Thank you so much, and thank you everyone, and thank you
Thank you.
everyone so much for joining. It's been lovely. I'll follow up with the recording of the webinar. Um, Take care. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. Well.
Cheers. Bye bye.